Adana moved like a shadow, her heels clicking softly against the pavement. To the world, she was untouchable, graceful, confident, wealthy. But beneath the shimmering exterior, beneath the carefully curated life of luxury, she was drowning. Because secrets have weight. And hers was getting heavier. A chill ran down her spine, but she ignored it, quickening her steps. She had done everything right, played by the rules of a game she barely understood, accepted gifts she knew came with unspoken debts. But now, as she rounded the corner to her apartment, she felt it. A presence. A pair of eyes watching from the shadows. And then, her phone buzzed. She hesitated before looking. Unknown number. Her stomach twisted, dread slithering up her spine like a cold hand. She knew who it was. She knew what it meant. The message was short. You think you can escape? Adana's breath hitched. She turned sharply, scanning the empty street. But she wasn't alone. Not tonight. Because when you make a deal with the devil, he never lets you walk away. Adana was the kind of girl who commanded attention without trying, the kind who walked through campus in the latest fashion, with confidence that made heads turn. Everyone admired her, but no one understood her. Where did her wealth come from? Unlike most students who juggled part-time jobs or relied on strict allowances from home, Adana never lacked. She lived in an expensive apartment off campus, dressed in designer clothes, carried the latest smartphones, and never hesitated to treat her friends to expensive dinners or shopping sprees. To Chioma and Ifeanyi, her closest friends, Adana was a blessing. She covered their bills when they were struggling, never letting them feel left out of the luxurious lifestyle she enjoyed. Don't worry, my darlings, she would say, waving off their concerns. What's mine is yours. But Chioma couldn't help but wonder. She had known Adana since their first year, back when she was just an ordinary girl who came from a modest home. But somewhere along the line, everything changed. She stopped complaining about money, started traveling to luxurious places, and had everything at her fingertips. Chioma had asked her once, in a quiet moment, how she had suddenly become so wealthy. Adana had simply smiled, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. I have a man who takes care of me. That's all that matters. Chioma didn't believe her. Ifeanyi, on the other hand, wasn't interested in questions. She wanted the same life. Ada, introduce me now, she would plead. I'm tired of managing. I want to live like you. But every time Ifeanyi asked, Adana's smile would falter, and she would shake her head. It's not that simple, she would say. Just be content with what I give you. Ifeanyi was not content. If Adana had found a way to escape the struggle of financial hardship, why couldn't she? Please don't forget to subscribe to Ubuntu Folktales for more exciting videos. Hit the subscriber button below, share and drop a comment in the comment section. Thank you so much. One evening, after lectures, the three friends sat outside their hostel, chatting over soft drinks. Adana had just returned from a shopping trip with new clothes, a designer handbag, and an expensive perfume that smelled of money itself. Oh, see enjoyment. Chioma teased. Ada, tell us the truth, are you related to Dangote? Adana laughed, tossing her braids over her shoulder. You people should stop looking at me like that. It's just small enjoyment. Ifeanyi folded her arms, narrowing her eyes. Be honest with us, she pressed. You don't work. We know your parents are not rich. How do you afford all these things? Adana's smile faded for a split second, but she quickly recovered. I have someone who takes care of me, she said lightly. That's all that matters. Ifeanyi wasn't convinced. Then introduce me to one of his friends now, she said, frustration creeping into her voice. I'm tired of managing. Adana's expression hardened. No. Stop asking. The tension between them was thick, and Chioma quickly changed the topic. Ada, at least we appreciate all you do for us. Thank you. Adana nodded, but her mind was troubled. She wished she could tell them the truth, but she was too scared. Ken had warned her never to speak of what he had done to her. The name alone made her shiver. Ken. The man who had changed her life forever. She had met him in her first year, rich, charming, generous. At first, she thought she was just lucky, that she had found a man who adored her. He took her to expensive restaurants, bought her gifts, and gave her money without asking for anything in return. But everything changed when he invited her to a special business meeting with his friends. You have to do something for me to secure our future, he had said. And she had trusted him. That night, she was taken to a strange house, where Ken's friends performed rituals on her. She was scared but convinced herself that it was just part of their culture. It was only later that she realized what had happened. Ken had used her womb for rituals. She would never be able to have children. The realization hit her like a knife to the chest. She had screamed at him, tears streaming down her face. Ken, you're evil. How could you do this to me? I thought you loved me. He had only laughed. This is the price of wealth, my dear, he had said, his voice cold. You can't go back now. And if you tell anyone, you will die. His words haunted her. She wanted to run, but where could she go? She was already trapped. She had already been enjoying the money. How could she turn back now? She told herself she would never introduce her friends to Ken and his group. She would never let them suffer as she had suffered. But Ifeananya was growing restless. Valentine's Day was approaching, and everywhere she looked, girls in school were talking about the gifts their boyfriends would buy them. She didn't want to be left out. She wanted expensive gifts. She wanted money. She wanted the good life. She tried asking Adana one more time, but the answer was still no. Why don't you want me to enjoy too? She asked angrily. Ifeananya, just be patient, Adana said. Not all money is good money. Ifeananya scoffed. But you are enjoying it. Adana sighed. You don't understand. Ifeananya rolled her eyes. Every time you tell me I won't understand. Just make me understand. What's so special about you that I can't have the same thing? Adana clenched her jaw. I said no, Ifeananya. Let it go. But Ifeananya would not let it go. That night, when Adana was asleep, Ifeananya took her phone and copied Ken's number. The next day, she made the call. Hello. My name is Ifeananya. I'm Adana's friend. There was silence on the other end before Ken chuckled. Oh, Adana's friend. What can I do for you? I want to meet you, Ifeananya said confidently. I want to enjoy too. Ken paused. He knew Ifeananya had called without Adana's knowledge. Then he said, come to the Grand Lux restaurant tomorrow evening. Let's meet. Ifeanyanya's heart raced with excitement. She had done it. She was finally going to have the life she wanted. The following day, she dressed in her best clothes, applied her finest makeup, and left without telling Adana or Chioma where she was going. When Adana saw her looking so excited, she felt uneasy. Where are you going? Adana asked. Just to see someone, Ifeananya replied with a smile. Be careful. The world is not safe anymore, Adana warned. Don't worry about me, Ifeananya said as she walked away. She had no idea that she had just walked into the biggest mistake of her life. Grand Lux restaurant stood in the wealthiest part of Nokaik, where men in fine suits and women in shimmering dresses gathered to enjoy the finest meals money could buy. Ifeananya had never stepped foot inside before, but tonight, as she walked through the grand entrance, she felt as though she had already crossed over into another world. The scent of foreign wines mixed with the rich aroma of grilled meats, the chandeliers glowed softly, and every table was set with polished silverware and folded napkins. Ifunanya's heart pounded with excitement. This was the life she had dreamed of. She spotted Ken immediately. His presence alone was commanding. He sat at a secluded table, dressed in a dark designer suit, his fingers lazily swirling a glass of deep red wine. He was older, maybe in his late 30s, but he carried himself with the confidence of a man who had never known struggle. Ifunanya approached him with a smile, smoothing down the edges of her dress as she sat across from him. "Good evening, sir," she said sweetly. Ken's lips curled into a knowing smile. "Ifunanya," he said smoothly. "I've heard so much about you. Adana speaks highly of you." Ifunanya's excitement flared at the mention of Adana. So, she had been right all along. This man was the source of Adana's wealth. "Thank you, sir," she replied, trying to keep her voice composed despite her eagerness. "I admire Adana a lot. She's living the kind of life every girl dreams of. And I want the same." Ken took a slow sip of his wine, his eyes never leaving hers. "And what makes you think you are ready for this life?" Ifunanya straightened her posture. "I am willing to do whatever it takes." Ken chuckled. "Is that so?" He leaned forward slightly, his eyes gleaming with something unreadable. "Tell me, Ifunanya, do you believe in sacrifice?" The question threw her off for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. "Of course," she said. "Nothing good comes without sacrifice." Ken smirked, pleased with her answer. "Good. You have the right mindset." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek black card. "Tomorrow night, come to this address. Alone. And wear something elegant. I want to see if you are truly ready for what you're asking for." Ifunanya took the card, her fingers trembling slightly. "I won't disappoint you, sir." Ken smiled. "I know you won't." As Ifunanya left the restaurant, she felt a surge of triumph. She had done it. She had secured her future. The thought of Adana's warnings flashed in her mind briefly, but she brushed them aside. Adana just didn't want to share. But back at the hostel, Adana paced the room anxiously. Something didn't feel right. Ifunanya had been acting strange, and Adana knew that look, the same look she had once had before she had learned the truth. She grabbed her phone and dialed Ifunanya's number. It rang twice before Ifunanya answered. "Ada, what is it?" she asked, sounding impatient. "Where are you?" Adana demanded. "I just went out to see someone," Ifunanya said evasively. Adana's heart pounded. "Ifunanya, please, tell me the truth. Did you contact Ken?" There was a pause. Then, "Ada, I don't know why you're so secretive about this man. You're enjoying, but you don't want me to enjoy too. I don't understand you." Adana's blood ran cold. It was already too late. The next night, Ifunanya arrived at the address Ken had given her. It was a lavish estate on the outskirts of the town, surrounded by high walls and guarded gates. The moment she stepped inside, she knew this was no ordinary gathering. The house was filled with powerful men in fine clothing, their eyes sharp and assessing. The air was thick with the scent of burning incense, and something about the dim lighting and the way the shadows flickered against the walls made her skin crawl. Ken greeted her with a warm smile. "You came. Good girl." He took her hand and led her toward a room at the back of the house. "You're about to enter a new world, Ifunanya," he said. "But before you do, there is one final test." Ifunanya hesitated for the first time. "Test," she echoed. Ken nodded. "You must prove your loyalty to us. To this life." He gestured toward the room. "Go inside, and when you come out, your life will never be the same." Ifunanya felt a chill run down her spine, but she swallowed her fear. This was what she wanted. She stepped into the room. The moment the door shut behind her, she knew something was very wrong. The air was thick with the scent of blood and something sickly sweet, like decaying flowers. The walls were lined with strange symbols, drawn in dark, dried stains. In the center of the room stood a table, and on it, a human skull. Ifunanya's breath hitched. The shadows in the room felt alive, stretching toward her, wrapping around her like unseen hands. And then, a voice. Low. Ancient. Whispering. You have been chosen. You must give yourself. She tried to turn back, to run, but the door would not open. It was locked. Panic set in. Her breath came in sharp gasps. This was not what she had expected. This was not the luxury she had imagined. A cold wind blew through the room even though there were no windows. The shadows twisted, and then she saw them. Figures, moving in the darkness, their faces hidden beneath hoods, their whispers growing louder. A terrible realization crashed over her. This was not a test. This was a sacrifice. She had walked straight into the hands of something evil. Back at the hostel, Adana could no longer sit still. The feeling of dread clawing at her chest was unbearable. Chioma, she said, grabbing her friend's hands. I need your help. Ifunanya is in danger. Chioma frowned. What are you talking about? She went to Ken, Adana said, her voice shaking. She doesn't know what she's walking into. We have to find her. Chioma's face paled. Where did she go? Adana pulled out her phone and scrolled through her messages. Ifunanya had sent her the location before she left, probably to boast about her success. Adana's hands trembled. We have to go. Now. They rushed out into the night, their footsteps quick against the empty streets. Adana's heart pounded with fear. She knew what Ken was capable of. She knew what kind of men she had once gotten involved with. And if they didn't reach Ifunanya in time, she might not come back. The night air was thick with the scent of impending rain as Adana and Chioma hurried through the dimly lit streets of Nwokaik, their sandals slapping against the pavement. Every second mattered. The message Ifunanya had sent before she left was their only clue, a location that whispered of danger, a place where the shadows had already closed in around her. Adana's heart pounded wildly against her ribs, her breath uneven. She knew the stakes, she had lived them. She had walked through the fire and barely escaped with her soul intact. Ifunanya, blinded by greed and hunger for wealth, had walked straight into a trap. Meanwhile, inside Ken's mansion, Ifunanya's world had turned into a nightmare. The walls, once luxurious and inviting, now felt like the closing jaws of a beast. The shadows twisted unnaturally, and the skull on the altar seemed to watch her with hollow, unblinking eyes. The whispering voices surrounded her, their words wrapping around her like a suffocating fog. She turned, her paws hammering against her skin. The door was locked. Her throat tightened. Ken, she called, forcing her voice to stay firm. I don't understand this. Let me out. But Ken's voice came from the darkness, smooth and patient. You wanted this life, didn't you? You wanted to enjoy, to be rich, to have everything at your fingertips. He stepped into the dim light, his face eerily calm. We all make sacrifices, Ifunanya. Yours has been chosen. Her stomach dropped. Chosen. The realization hit her like a blow to the chest. What do you mean? She whispered. Ken sighed, as though disappointed. Adana never told you, did she? Never told you what she had to give up to live the life she has. He took a slow step toward her. Nothing comes without a price, my dear. And now, you must pay yours. Terror clawed at her throat. She had made a terrible mistake. Ifunanya turned, banging on the door. Let me out. I don't want this anymore. But the shadows only thickened, pressing against her, seeping into her lungs like a thick, choking fog. The hooded figures moved closer, their murmurs rising. Ken's voice was final. It's too late. Outside, Adana and Chioma had reached the estate, but 2 armed guards stood by the gates, their faces impassive. We can't just walk in, Chioma whispered. What do we do? Adana swallowed hard, her mind racing. They didn't have time to be careful. I'll create a distraction, she said. When they move, you run inside and find Ifenanya. I know this place, I know where they'll have taken her. Chioma hesitated. Are you sure? Adana's jaw tightened. I'm sure. She took a deep breath, then stepped forward, letting out a piercing scream. Help. Someone is trying to kidnap me. The guards turned sharply, startled. Who are you? One of them barked, reaching for his weapon. Adana's eyes filled with frantic tears. Please. A man chased me all the way here, he's coming. I need help. The guards exchanged a look. That was all the time Chioma needed. While they hesitated, she slipped past them, darting into the shadows of the mansion's entrance. Inside, the ceremony had begun. Ifenanya stood frozen, her body trembling as the hooded figures surrounded her. The skull on the altar glowed faintly, the air thick with something unnatural. A knife gleamed under the candlelight. She had to run. Now. But just as she turned, Ken's voice rang out. Hold her. Hands grabbed her from all sides, cold, firm, unyielding. Ifenanya screamed. Then. A crash. Chioma had burst into the room, wild-eyed and breathless. Ifenanya, run. The moment of distraction was all Ifenanya needed. She twisted free, shoving one of the hooded figures aside and sprinting toward Chioma. Ken's enraged voice boomed. Stop them. But before his men could react, the air was pierced by the sound of sirens. Outside, Adana stood near the gate, holding up her phone. Yes, officer. They're inside, doing something terrible. I barely escaped. Please, hurry. The moment the guards realized what was happening, they panicked. Blue and red lights flashed against the mansion's high walls. The sound of police vehicles skidding to a stop sent Ken's men scattering. Inside, Ifenanya and Chioma barreled down the hallway, racing toward the exit. Ken's furious roar followed them, but he couldn't stop them now. They burst through the front doors just as the police stormed in. Officers swarmed the mansion, dragging men to the ground, seizing weapons, breaking down doors. Ifenanya collapsed onto the grass outside, sobbing. She had survived. Ken was nowhere to be seen. Adana knelt beside her, gripping her hands tightly. You're safe now. You're safe. Ifenanya's body shook violently. I didn't know. I thought. Her words broke into uncontrollable sobs. She had almost lost everything. Chioma looked toward the mansion, eyes scanning the chaos. What about Ken? Did they get him? But Adana's face was grim. She had known Ken for too long. He was like a shadow. And shadows always found a way to slip through cracks. As the sirens wailed into the night, one thing was certain, this was far from over. The aftermath of the night at Ken's mansion left a permanent mark on Ifenanya, a stain on her soul she could never wash away. She had stared death in the face and barely escaped. Now, every shadow made her flinch, every whisper in the marketplace made her stomach churn. She had believed wealth was an open door to happiness, that luxury was worth any price. Now, she knew the truth. Not all doors were meant to be opened. Not all wealth was free. And Ken was still out there. For days, the town of Nokaik buzzed with rumors. News spread quickly, a secret court exposed, An illegal gathering raided by the police, a mansion abandoned in the dead of night. But no one could confirm where Ken had gone. The man had vanished. Some claimed he fled to another country. Others whispered that he had powerful connections in high places, that the police would never truly touch him. Ifunanya lived in constant fear. She barely left the hostel, her once vibrant personality now reduced to a quiet, haunted version of herself. Chioma and Adana stayed close to her, never letting her out of their sight. But they all knew fear, like Ken's, did not fade easily. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, Adana sat beside Ifunanya on their hostel balcony. She had seen this pain before. She had lived it. "I know you're afraid," Adana said softly. Ifunanya didn't speak, just stared blankly at the street below. "I should have listened to you," she finally whispered. "You tried to warn me. You knew, and I still went to him. I thought I was ready, thought I was strong enough. But I wasn't." Her voice cracked. "I wasn't." Adana reached for her hand. "No one is ever ready for men like Ken," she said. "That's how they win. They make you believe you're in control. Until you're not." Ifunanya turned to her, eyes red from unshed tears. "Then how do you stop them?" she whispered. "How do you make it go away?" Adana didn't have an answer. That night, the past came knocking. Literally. A loud, forceful bang on their door startled all three girls awake. Boom. 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 The sound echoed through the silent corridor of the hostel. Ifunanya bolted upright, her breathing ragged. It couldn't be. It couldn't be. Chioma reached for her phone, hands shaking. "Who is that?" Adana whispered, creeping toward the door. Boom. Boom. Then silence. Adana pressed her ear against the door, heart pounding. The corridor outside was empty. But something had been there. Someone. A warning. The next morning, the hostel buzzed with gossip. "Did you hear?" one girl whispered near the common area. "The police didn't find Ken. His men are still looking for the people who betrayed them." Ifunanya swallowed hard. She could feel it, the weight of unfinished business. Ken wasn't done with them. And he would never let them walk away that easily. Later that afternoon, a message arrived on Ifunanya's phone. "Unknown number, you think you escaped. You belong to me now." The ground beneath her seemed to disappear. He knew. He was watching. She clutched the phone, knuckles white, panic clawing at her throat. She would never be free. Adana snatched the phone from her hands, reading the message. Her face hardened. "We can't keep running," she said. "If we don't stop him, he will never stop coming for us." Chioma's eyes widened. "Adana, what are you saying? We barely survived last time. How do you fight a man like Ken?" Adana exhaled. "By taking away his power. By making sure the world knows who he really is." She turned to Ifunanya. "You have proof? Evidence of what happened that night. We have to expose him. Publicly." Ifunanya hesitated. The thought of speaking up, of putting herself directly in Ken's path again, made her stomach twist. But then she remembered the room. The skull. The whispers in the dark. She had almost died that night. And Ken was still out there, waiting. "Okay," she whispered. "We do it. We end this." But none of them were prepared for what was coming next. The decision to expose Ken was one made in fear, in desperation, but above all, in courage. For too long, he had wielded power like an invisible dagger, striking from the shadows, leaving no trace of his crimes. But not this time. Not if Adana, Ifunanya, and Chioma had anything to do with it. They gathered in their hostel room, hearts pounding, minds racing. Ifeanyi placed her phone on the table, staring at the screen with unreadable eyes. The messages, the calls, the location he gave me, it's all here, she whispered. But will anyone believe us? Adana straightened. They don't have to believe us. They just have to listen. We'll give them something they can't ignore. The next day, they went to an online journalist, a man known for exposing corruption in high places. His name was Motsi Chakuma, and if there was one thing he hated more than injustice, it was men like Ken, men who believed themselves untouchable. They handed over everything, the messages, the recordings, the details of the mansion, the night of the raid. Motsi Chakuma listened in silence, then leaned back in his chair. This is dangerous, he said. You know that, right? If I publish this, he will come for you. Ifeanyi's hands clenched into fists. He already has. He won't stop unless we stop him first. The journalist nodded slowly. Then, without another word, he turned to his computer and began to type. By nightfall, the article was everywhere. The dark secret behind his wealth, the man who preys on innocence. It detailed everything: Ken's cult, the missing girls, the rituals, the sacrifices. It was no longer just a whisper. It was a scream. Social media exploded. People demanded justice. Women came forward with stories, other victims, other girls who had nearly lost everything to Ken and his men. The police, embarrassed by their failure to catch him, reopened the case. Ken was no longer a ghost. He was the most wanted man in the country. And that was when he made his mistake. He called Ifeanyi. The phone rang late into the night, vibrating against the wooden table. The girls froze. Unknown number. Ifeanyi swallowed hard and answered. You think you've won? Ken's voice was a growl, stripped of the charm it once carried. You think this changes anything? Ifeanyi's grip tightened. It already has. Silence. Then, laughter. Cold. Mocking. You'll never be safe, he whispered. None of you will. But Ken was wrong. He wasn't as untouchable as he thought. The call was traced. The police stormed his hideout within hours, catching him before he could disappear again. The mighty had fallen. His arrest was broadcast nationwide, the man who once walked freely among kings, now dragged in chains before the world. Ifeanyi watched from the television screen in her hostel, her breath shaky. It was over. Or at least, this part of it was. Adana placed a hand on her shoulder. You did it, she said. You survived. Ifeanyi closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. She had survived. And she would never be the same again. Thank you for watching. Did the story remind you of anyone? Please hit the subscribe button, share this story with someone, like the video and tell me about your thoughts in the comment section.